Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Shanghai, headlined by Mingyang Zhang and Johnny Walker. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, listen, most of the time when I come on this show here, we just dive right into the next week. I don't have any emotions when it comes to winning or losing the prior week. I've just done this too long. We just have too much work to do for the next week coming up. So I will talk a little bit about the DDP versus Chimaev fight, which we did bet Dricus there. I really like the odds there. Thought the price was off. And Chimaev, to his credit, the guy did go out there. He did get the victory. He won every round. And there's nothing to take away from that part of it. Losing bet. But it was a dominating performance from Chimaev. It was. There's no doubt it was dominating. But it was like a dominating lay and pray performance, a lay and pray for the ages performance. And that's just what it was. I looked at this fight and I said, hey, if Chimaev's going to get him, of course, there's that chance early. Can he last? All of those questions, and a lot of them weren't really answered, to be honest. He had 22 minutes of control time and landed 37 significant strikes to DDP's 13. That's historic, I think. A lot of people we want to talk about, George St. Pierre. Oh man, St. Pierre did that. St. Pierre has never in his title run in a 5-rounder landed 37 significant strikes over 5 rounds. 65, 70, not 80, 100. Yeah, he's done that. 37 is really is the definition of what a lay and pray is. You land him for the entire fight. You land a couple shots up top, and that's it. Yes, he landed a lot of total strikes, but again, that's not something that we really, that's not really the metric that we're looking at. It's really significant strike. That's what matters the most to judges, to anything else. He won positionally, but I just thought it was a very, very underwhelming performance from Chimaev, having 22 minutes, unable to finish him, unable to really have a big moment, like a big, oh, we hurt him. I would argue that Dricus might have had the biggest moment in that fight. But either way, he lost. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if Dricus was winning 4 rounds and got knocked out in the 5th. It all is the same outcome. So I just wanted to give that little tidbit there that I know a lot of people are asking me, what's your thoughts? What'd you think? What'd you think? So I wanted to kind of start the video off with a little rant. But with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening this weekend. We're going to be talking Mingyang Zhang and Johnny Walker. Now, you look at this fight here, and you've got Mingyang Zhang. He's sitting around minus 330 on the comeback here. We've got Johnny Walker. He is plus 280. Now, you look at this fight here, and you got Walker. Walker is an absolutely explosive guy. He's a freak athlete. We see these aerial moves that he does, these jumping knees and these flying things that he does do, that he's been able to do it over his career. Back in 2018, 2019, this guy was just absolutely knocking guys out, looked like this next big thing, especially back then. It looked like him and Reyes were like these 2 rising stars in the division, going out there, crashing the pocket early, throwing big shots and all these things. And it was working out for him. Then we started to realize that Johnny Walker doesn't have a chin. Now, Johnny Walker, friend of the show, had him on last year, still communicate with him, to this day here and there. But I gotta call a spade here. I gotta, say what I see, basically. And, Johnny Walker is the definition of a glass cannon. It just is. You look at it, he's a guy that might be on the Mount Rushmore of glass chins, and next to him is Luke Rockhold. That's just kind of what it is. And, Johnny Walker has that power. He has that ability. He has all the tools. He has the striking. He's got the grappling. It's just he can't take a punch. And that's the big thing here. Even when it's a punch that's like half blocked, he still gets rocked. He still can get wobbled. We've seen it multiple times. You've seen it, in fights, even where he's comes back and wins. He's been dropped multiple times. It looks bad for him. So it's just a tough spot for him here, especially in his career at this point here. And you look at it, and he was, has been working out at SBG, and even at that camp, they figured, hey, let's slow it down a little bit. Let's have you be a little bit more patient. Let's have you be a little bit more technical in the pocket. work your tools, be able to use that. And him being patient is only him patiently waiting to get knocked out. I mean, it's just what it is. And it's kind of crazy also the fact that Johnny Walker is, 3-4-1 over his last 8 fights, and he's main eventing. And this is not going to be the longest breakdown on this fight here, because this feels like they are shipping Johnny Walker to China to get knocked out. And I don't think that there's really many people are going to debate that. Obviously, we're seeing this line has tightened a little bit. It was up to around, I think, minus 400. Saw some money come in a little bit here, but still, this is a wide line here. Now, you look at Zhang. I mean, Zhang, this is a guy who, is fighting on home soil and is a guy who is pretty well-rounded. You look at what he's able to do, in his regional scene, he was going out there and he was, grappling, getting takedowns, submissions, doing all those things. Now he has really fallen in love with his hands here, and he's been able to really land those shots, find those kill shots here, and he now realizes that I've got this power, and that's a big spot here where you're looking at what he can do. You got Zhang, 100% finish rate, 19 wins, 13 by knockout, 6 by submission, all of them coming in the first round. And that's where I'm going with this play here. There's no tricks. Sometimes the bet is as obvious as it is here. I don't see this getting outside the first round. I just don't. Could it squeak to the second? Possible, but I really think this is a spot where Johnny Walker's in trouble in that first round. I think he's going to come forward. I think they're both going to throw. I think that you've got this fight here, Johnny Walker in China, a guy who doesn't have a chin against the guy who they're basically trying to build up for China. So I think this is a spot where you can get off the minus 330 number. You can get Zhang right now. I believe it's FanDuel. I bet it on round 1 knockout by Zhang, a minus 110, even money on a spot where the trend, I'm following the trend here. I am taking Mingyang Zhang by knockout, minus 110 in the main event. Next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Mikael Pereira. He is minus 295 in the comeback here. We've got Kyle Dawkins. He is plus 220. Now, you got Pereira here, and Pereira is recently coming off absolutely throwing a fight against Abus Magomedov. I mean, he just completely threw that fight, and nobody can tell me anything else about that fight because it's pretty obvious. I mean, you go there, it was like a glorified sparring match. The way that they were pitter-pattering shots, Pereira, who's a guy that comes out guns blazing, didn't do that at all, didn't really seem to care. Anything he threw had really no power at all behind it. And it almost looked like they were just trying to get to the decision. I mean, it almost looked like that. He was like, hey, I'm going to throw this fight. And it was pretty obvious to me. Nothing happened with him. So it's going to be hard to trust that guy. I understand that part of it. Going to be tough to trust him. But overall, his move to 185, I think it's been a good one for him. You know what I mean? He was struggling making 170, multiple times he wasn't making the weight. Then he goes up and has 3 straight, three straight first round knockout wins or finishes, and has looked good. He's keeping his power, keeping, the fact that how light he is on the feet, his explosiveness, his athleticism, and moving up in this weight hasn't really, been taxing on his body at all. But the other part about this is that the last 2 fights didn't look that good. Now you've got him against Fluffy Hernandez, which you can't really knock him for losing to Fluffy. It was a spot also that actually Pereira almost got that first round knockout. He had hurt him to the body. He was landing some big shots. And really the biggest 2 weapons that Fluffy has is his toughness and his cardio. And that was what he was basically able to kind of dig into, was able to withstand some of those heavy shots, get it to the, and arguably started really taking over in that first round. But there was the early moments where he was in trouble and he was able to do what he's able to do. Next fight was against Magomedov, which was just a terrible fight overall. So I do think that right now the line, it is providing some value, even on the money line. I'm going to be honest, even on the money line here, I think this is a spot where Pereira can absolutely run through Dawkins here. You've got Dawkins, who is now on his second stint in the UFC. His first stint, which wasn't that great. He was 2-4-1, coming off back-to-back knockout losses. Not the greatest look overall here. He goes to CFFC, wins 4 straight fights, which, he's beating grocery store clerks and, garbage men, pretty much, part-time fighters. And, he beat guys that are 6-3 fighter, an 8-6 fighter, a 17-9 record, and also an 8-11 record on these guys. So not the highest level guys overall. And I think that this is a spot here where one of the biggest issues on the Daukaus side is his durability. He is very hittable in the pocket when he is moving forward. He just has no striking defense at all. That Pereira has big time power. And I think that he can get back to that. I think that's what we're going to see here, that we're going to say, wow, this is a guy that this is what he didn't do against Magomedov. Also, I do think that Daukaus needs takedowns. He needs to get takedowns. He needs to kind of implement the Fluffy game plan. And I don't really put him anywhere near Fluffy. I mean, obviously Fluffy is going to, he's got an opportunity to fight for a title very, very soon. And he's just in the mix. We've got Daukaus. Guy's half, I don't even think he's that good. He's the worst brother of the two. And you've got, he's got a 25% takedown success rate. We got Pereira 76% takedown defense rate. I think that holds up here. And where I'm going with this spot here is getting off the minus 295 number here. You can get Pereira inside the distance at plus 100. I think that is really a great price here. I think that this could be one where it ends in the first or second round. I think he goes for it. He tries to put a stamp on this. He knows that was a shitty performance that he had just had. He's got to come back and bounce back, and they are serving him Daukaus, who was a big step down in competition. So I'm going Michel Pereira to get the job done by inside the distance at plus 100. Next one you're going to talk about is going to be Loner Kavanagh. He is minus 210. On the comeback here, we have Charles Johnson. He is plus 170. You got Loner here, who is a rising prospect in the UFC. 9-0 record, 2-0 in the UFC, and we've seen what he's able to do here. His biggest attribute I think that he has is his speed. I mean, his hand speed is phenomenal. His footwork is very fast here. He's got very quick movements overall, and also he can add in, the power. It's not just that he's got these pitter patter shots. He can really back it up with some power here, and then he can mix in the wrestling. So he definitely is a well-rounded fighter overall. He's been able to utilize some of those takedowns, mix it up a little bit, then work from the at distance. While you got Charles Johnson here on the other side, he's a UFC vet, tough guy overall. He is 6-5 in the UFC, and I do think that's a little misleading. Has fought some very tough guys basically throughout his career, and consistently the UFC is setting him up with very tough opponents. He's been able to win some, lose some, but now he's on a nice 4-1 run, which I do think we are seeing him kind of get a little bit better. I mean, yes, he's now 34, whatever it may be. But we are seeing him really kind of find some nice victories and really look pretty sharp overall. He is a very good rangy striker, and he is very good at distance management. He's got those teep kicks. He can mix it up, smooth stance switching, picking different targets of the body and really finding success doing that. While I do think the other part here is a big advantage for Johnson, I think is his takedown defense and his wrestling. And I think you've got Loner, who is undersized for this division here. I think that's a big part of this here, is he's very undersized. And I think he needs to lean on some of these takedowns. I think he has to mix it up. I think at range, he's going to struggle a little bit here due to the size. But I do think also that he can't lean on the wrestling as much. You've got Charles Johnson, who I think is a good defensive wrestler and a good offensive wrestler. So he could look to implement that. He can look to mix up, look to level change a little bit here. He also, in Loner, he needed to get takedowns against Felipe Dos Santos to find the victory. He had 4 takedowns. Not that the striking was any kind of issue, but I thought it was a little more closer than I think Loner wanted, and he started mixing it in and found a way and found a path and got the victory here. And I do think that you've got Johnson, who I do think in this spot can push a pace, can push that wrestling pace, can push the volume, and really stay on Loner. And I think also the height and the reach advantage is going to help him. You got a 3-inch reach advantage here. I think the bigger cage also does help Johnson here, where he can utilize that great footwork. He's got very tricky footwork. I think that he could really utilize that here. This is also, I think, a fairly big step up here, I think, for Loner, and especially being a 2-1 favorite, I think is a little off when you're looking this year. So I do think this is a dog or pass spot. I think that you got Charles Johnson can work those striking from the outside, work in some wrestling, have that defensive wrestling to keep it standing and find his way to a decision victory here. But I do like Charles Johnson to get the job done at plus 170. And the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Rong Zhu versus Austin Hubbard. He is minus 280, and the comeback here in Hubbard is plus 210. Now, Rongzhu here is 25 years old with 32 professional fights. I mean, that is pretty unbelievable when you're talking about just the fact that he's only 25 years old. He's basically growing up on the job in the UFC, or in, I shouldn't say UFC really, but in the cage, where, you know, he's just consistently, he's going to win, he's going to lose, but he is learning a lot and going to really consistently grow here. And I do think we are seeing him get a little bit better, especially more recently. Now he's at CKB over the last 2 camps, and I think that he has looked good. I think he's putting it together a little bit better. I think he's looking a little bit sharper overall. And most recently was his best performance to date by far, which was against Cody Steele. And that was a fight where Rongzhu was a plus 280 underdog against Cody Steele, and he outperformed that number by a mile. He looked fantastic out there at range, at distance. He outlanded Cody Steele 125 significant strikes to 59 with a knockdown. He won the decision. Really a great showing for him overall. And I do think, you know, it did show, again, that he's getting more well-rounded. He's getting more comfortable. He's really getting his sea legs and really starting to, you know, I think, put things together. And in this spot, I think he's got a lot of advantages here over Hubbard. And while Hubbard, you know, this is another guy, his second stint in the UFC. His first stint, he was 3-4, which wasn't that great. He's since returning. He's 1-3. Again, not that great. And also, you know, you look at him stylistically. I mean, he's got slow hands. He's got slow combinations. His footwork is very slow, plotty. You know, he's a guy that needs to get those takedowns in order to find some kind of success here or grind you up against the fence. He's got a 31% takedown success rate. Not that great overall here. And I think you got Rongzhu, well, I think it's just better everywhere. And I think this is a spot here. He's got the way faster hands, better combinations overall. I think that this is another spot here where he can keep this fight standing, even if Hubbard is going to look for those takedowns, which he might. He's got a 84% takedown defense rate. I think that can hold up in this spot here. And I think he can play the long game here. I think he can defend. I think there's going to be spots where it's going to be scrappy, get close. I think that Hubbard is going to try to grind on him a little bit here. But I do think Rongzhu, his volume, his hand speed are really going to take over throughout this fight here. And also where I'm going with this play here is that Hubbard's a very tough guy to put away. Out of his 9 losses, 6 are by decision here. I think there's going to be some scrappy rounds. I do like Rongzhu, but I'm going Rongzhu by points. That's around minus 105. I like that price here, and I think he gets the job done. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Shanghai. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Have plays up right now for clients. And we are off next week. Then we are back for actually a card I really do like and have some good spots there that I am going to be hammering and probably will be sending out early to clients with that week off. So let's get that money. Let's do the job this weekend and let's cash.